वेलकम बैक नाजरीन। आप लोग देख रहे हैं इस्लामिक फाइनेंस एंड प्रॉपर्टीज़। मैं हूं अली काजी, आपका होस्ट। मैंने आपसे जिस तरह पहले तारुफ कराया था ब्रेक से पहले, हमारे साथ एक बैंकर बैठी हैं, हमारी दोस्त भी हैं और बड़ी सीनियर बैंकर हैं। उनसे हम लोग क्वेश्चंस पूछ रहे थे क्रेडिट रिपोर्ट के बारे में। प्लीज़ वेलकम बैक सादिया शफीक। अस्सलाम वालेकुम सादिया।
Thank you. Walaikum
Again,
Assalam.
thank you again for bearing with us और giving our viewers a lot of information. अच्छा सादी, आप बता रही थी क्रेडिट रिपोर्ट के बारे में एंड यू वर टेलिंग मी कि द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ इट और पेमेंट्स जो है ऑन टाइम करनी चाहिए एंड सो ऑन सो फोर्थ। बट देयर आर इंस्टेंसेस वेयर बंदा थोड़ा सा ज़रा रिलैक्स्ड हो जाता है। ऑब्वियसली बैंक्स जो हैं वो आपको फेवरेबली तो इस पे नहीं देखते होंगे, तो क्या सिचुएशन, क्या चल रहा होता है पीछे, बैकग्राउंड में क्या चल रहा होता है?
Again, it's the system which is deciding things. So आपने अभी जैसे बोला कि कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि अभी पेमेंट नहीं आ रही तो कुछ देर बाद पे कर देंगे, अभी ये नहीं हो रहा तो कुछ देर बाद पे कर देंगे. Yes, there is a facility like that. You can do it, but you cannot rely on yourself and decide it yourself. So अगर आपकी पेमेंट डिले है तो आप कहीं बिल पे नहीं हो रहा तो आप उनको इन्फॉर्म करें. So they can make arrangements in place. Either they move the direct debit date forward उस वक्त जब आपके पास फंड्स अवेलेबल हों. इसी तरह अगर आप बैंक को कह रहे हैं कि आई डोंट हैव मनी एट द मोमेंट, आई कांट मेक दिस रिपेमेंट दिस मंथ और आई विल मेक डबल रिपेमेंट नेक्स्ट मंथ और डू एनी और एट अ लेटर डेट आई कैन डू दिस. So still these things are possible, but you have to make sure you make an informed decision with the bank and with the other people as well. So you can't just sit down and think के fine मैंने सोचा है कि मैं अब पे नहीं करूँगा, लेट पे करूँगा. So that gets a very bad.
अच्छा, तो मतलब अगर आप बैंक से पहले से बात कर लें
बात कर लें तो then
कि
that is
भाई, या
something.
आप वो अपने क्रेडिटर से बात कर लें कि ये मैं बिल जो है ये अब नहीं दे रहा, 4 दिन बाद दूंगा या 5 दिन
हाँ,
बाद दे दूंगा।
kindly do this favor and it totally depends on the bank. So you can't say कि depend बैंक आपको हर बार favor करेगा, but yes, if you have been good with them, yes, they will do one off or two off favors to
Well,
yourself.
technically speaking, they're there to help us.
Exactly, but they will do help, but they will still see the behaviors which you had in past. So ये एक बहुत important चीज़ है कि आपके behaviors बहुत matter करते हैं. If you are a serial offender and you've been doing it for ages now, I think none of the bank or any other company will favor you in that because they know it's a normal course of action you do all the time. So then things won't go in your favor. But yes, one off you've done it, or you're making an informed decision with the bank and you're very good with the bank, managing your money and a good relationship with the bank, yes, they will do the favors to you,
अच्छा, अब
definitely.
आप मुझे ये बताएं कि अब चलें लापरवाही हो गई और बैड क्रेडिट हो गया, अब उसको किस तरह, हाउ लॉन्ग डज इट टेक टू रेक्टिफाई इट, what can you do to rectify it? You know, there has to be a way as well, क्योंकि obviously बात है, अभी नहीं तो कल आपको mortgage की ज़रूरत होगी या लोन की ज़रूरत होगी या कुछ और इस तरह की सिचुएशन, तो उसके अंदर आप क्या कर सकते हैं, क्या होता है?
उसका बेस्ट सोल्यूशन ये है कि अगर आपसे नेग्लिजेंस हो गई है एंड यू हैव नॉट मेड द पेमेंट, so first thing you do is make sure you get in touch with that company and try to arrange the payment ASAP. आप जब पेमेंट अरेंज करते हैं तो वो रिकॉर्ड में आ जाता है कि येस देयर वाज एन ऑफेंस डन, बट विद इन 2 or 3 days or within a month the payment was made and the arrears were clear. It will stay on your credit history, but what will happen is then any special circumstance happen and you go for a mortgage or anything and it gets declined for some reason, तो bank will look into deep depths on that and say कि अच्छा ठीक है, आप अपनी credit history report हमें ला के दें. Experian is one of the top one at the moment,
Is
which
that what
people,
most of the banks
most of
use?
the banks are using, and most of bank, I won't say just the banks are using. It's all other companies who are lending or have got like you owing them bills and all. They are using that. So that is building your credit history over there. So Experian is one of the one that you go on and print your report. Your report will explain to the bank or any other lender you're going for lending that what has happened in the past regards this payment. And that's where it satisfied the underwriters कि हाँ ठीक है, there was a negligence, I won't say there was a occasion which that
A
took place,
mishap.
mishap took place, yes, and now that has been rectified, so it just clears the history for
नहीं नहीं,
you.
वो तो ठीक है, लेकिन अब लाइक फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर इफ़ यूर अ सीरियल अफेंडर एंड यू नो, जिस तरह ये आजकल जो यूथ है, यू नो, देयर अ लिटिल बिट मोर केयरफ्री कि ठीक है, इट डजंट मैटर, they don't see themselves buying a house in the you know,
In the future.
in the future, in the foreseeable future. तो ज़रा थोड़ा रिलैक्स होते हैं बंदे, लाइक 18-19 year olds, 20 year olds, तो उनकी क्रेडिट हिस्ट्री जो है वो इट गेट्स फ्रॉम बैड टू वर्स, ठीक है. बट देन देयर कम्स अ पॉइंट व्हेन दे नीड टू रेक्टिफाई एवरीथिंग. फॉर इंस्टेंस दे हैव टेकन आउट लोन्स, दे हैवंट पेड दैट, जिस तरह, एंड एक्चुअली नॉट जस्ट फॉर यंगस्टर्स, फॉर एवरीबडी रियली.
Yeah, it's
तो
everybody.
अब आप उसका क्या हल है? हाउ कैन यू देन रेक्टिफाई ऑल ऑफ दैट?
The credit history generally the way it works is अगर आप बहुत ज़्यादा serial offender रहे हैं in the past और आपने बहुत सारी payments नहीं की हैं, उनको जाके rectify भी नहीं किया हुआ, तो एक credit history पे ये mark 6 साल तक रहता है.
अच्छा, 6 साल तक रहता है.
6 years is the time frame. ये 6 years तक रहता है. After 6 years you can start new.
Okay.
So this is what happens in the credit history world. So if you have been doing that and you had issues previously, that will wipe off after 6 years. And after 6 years, you can start new and see how you're going to manage it. And that's the time where you have to be very careful because it still remains in the history somewhere that previously you have been an offender.
Right.
So they
Okay.
can still
Although
try.
they can't see it.
They can't see it, but they can refer to it and they can find those.
Actually, they can refer to it
They
as well.
refer to it, yes,
And
if they would
is
like
it
to.
is it a normal practice for the banks to actually refer
No,
to your
it's not a
previous?
normal practice, I would say. Bank would still look at the current situation, how that's going on, and that's the updated situation according to their system. But if the banks want to go more deep into the history, they do contain and they do have history a lot as well. So उनके अपने system में भी चीजें recorded होती हैं. There are credit folder notes added into that. So हर चीज़ जो है that counts in. So अगर वो बैंक से deal करते रहे हैं तो बैंक में say I'm a bank representative, any time that any mishap have taken place, I will place a credit folder note in there. So credit folder note जो है it remains in the history for a very long time. So जब banks dig out कर रहे होते हैं and investigate कर रहे होते हैं तो they go back into history properly and have a look at how you've been in the past as well.
Right. Okay. Very
But
interesting.
if you change your behaviors, and that's where the banks just get, it takes the bank quite a while to get comfortable with you.
For somebody to wait for 6 years is literally a life sentence.
But
it is.
but
it
you
really
know
is.
that the offense has been done. It's again.
Yeah, but is there not a way कि यार साल 2 साल बाद if the bank suddenly sees कि there is now a behavioral
Again, yeah, if you improve your behaviors, again, I would say if you improve your behaviors and you put a stop at sometimes, after 2 साल आपको ख्याल आता है कि right, I need to get things right, you need to make sure that you go back and contact every company that you've been failing payments and you've not paid, you go back and pay them. That will make sure.
Or you make a settlement with
So you
them.
make a settlement with them that you are paying. So there is something you've done to rectify it. So you have to make sure that the mistakes you've done in the past, you rectify them. If you then leave them unattended, that actually counts to you
अच्छा,
towards your
कुछ
behavior.
लोग ये IVA पे भी चले जाते हैं, which is a scheme where they actually give their credit to a third party and they agree a certain payment and minimal payment and so on and so forth. That also reflects on your credit report?
Exactly, because you have chosen a mean where you're asking the debts. It means you're kind of in some sort of financial difficulty. That's why you've chosen to go there.
But would the bank then also look at कि ये IVA के ऊपर है और
Yeah, exactly. That is something that the bank. Again, मैं कहूँगी जब आप credit history की तरफ जाते हैं तो the point comes in that we need to see that when we are lending people, they are worthwhile. And on top होता ये कि जब आप इस तरह की credit history के साथ बैंक के साथ जाएंगे तो बैंक may be looking at several other aspects and they may at the very lowest point decide to give you the funds after looking at several aspects. Your interest rates will be higher because you are a high risk to them. So they will charge you a higher interest rate. And if you're a very organized person, good with the money, you tend to get a very good interest rate as well. So अगर मैं good credit history के साथ जाती हूँ, say it says excellent, good, then there are chances to get a lower interest rate. And if I go with fair, poor or anything, and there is a chance that the bank agrees that some occasion they're trying to help you, they will put a very high interest rate on your funding.
Okay.
So that is why it's very important to be good with your money and behave in certain ways if you're really looking to go forward, have mortgages and borrowing and car financing and everything. So it's very, very vital. This is the core thing for that.
And this is not just for conventional mortgages or conventional loans. आई थिंक इस्लामिक लोन्स जो हैं, इस्लामिक mortgages जो हैं, they also look at credit reports
They
and
do
your
look at credit,
behavioral.
yeah, they do look at credit reports, but they do not look as deep as the conventional bankers will look at it.
Really?
There's a
Okay.
reason why for that, because when you go towards Islamic banking may your profit loss sharing. So if you're making profit, you're sharing, and if you're losing, the loss is towards both sides as well. But when you come towards conventional banking lends you the funds and they let you play with it. So if you've made the mess, bank doesn't take any sort of
Responsibility.
responsibility. But on the Islamic banking side, yes, they are responsible. They will keep an eye on what you're doing with the money, and because they are actually sharing everything with you, profit and loss both.
All right.
So
Okay.
that's one of the difference between conventional banking and everything.
फैंटास्टिक
So
फैंटास्टिक पहले कॉल पे चलते हैं, फिर आगे सवाल जवाब करेंगे जी। अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
हेलो अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
जी वालेकुम सलाम, कौन बोल रही हैं?
जी मेरा नाम आयशा है, मैं लंदन से बात कर रही हूँ।
जी आयशा, अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
मैंने आपसे 2 क्वेश्चन पूछने थे।
जी जी।
वन क्वेश्चन इज अगर बाय टू लेट हम प्रॉपर्टी लेते हैं,
बाय टू लेट प्रॉपर्टीज, जी।
हाँ जी, तो हम एज अ ओनर जब मैंने खरीदी है तो मैं उसमें रह सकती हूँ?
अच्छा, तो नंबर 1 आपने क्वेश्चन पूछना, अगर आप बाय टू लेट प्रॉपर्टी खरीदती हैं, क्या आप उसके अंदर खुद रह सकती हैं?
जी हाँ।
ठीक है। आर यू अ फर्स्ट टाइम बायर या डू यू हैव अदर प्रॉपर्टीज?
आई हैव अनदर प्रॉपर्टी।
यू हैव अनदर प्रॉपर्टी, ठीक है। और दूसरा क्वेश्चन क्या है आपका?
दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मैंने अपने नाम पे प्रॉपर्टी ली है, अगर मैं किसी और को साथ मिलाना चाहूँ।
साथ में मिलाना चाहें?
हाँ जी, जैसे मैंने प्रॉपर्टी खरीदी है पर मैं अपनी फ्रेंड को बीच में डालना चाहती हूँ
अच्छा,
उस प्रॉपर्टी में।
प्रॉपर्टी खरीद के डालना चाहती हैं या प्रॉपर्टी खुद इकट्ठे लेना
आई
चाहती
थिंक
हैं?
चले चले ऐसा करती हूँ कि साथ साथ लेते हैं।
अच्छा, अगर आप लोग साथ साथ प्रॉपर्टी लें। ओके, राइट, ओके। आपने सुन लिया क्वेश्चन?
I couldn't hear that, so
ओके ओके।
I'd be
तो पहला,
depending on you
आयशा
too.
हैं लंदन से, वो पूछ रही हैं कि अगर वो बाय टू लेट प्रॉपर्टी खरीदें तो कैन शी लिव इन दैट प्रॉपर्टी?
No.
अच्छा, ये तो बड़ा
That's a
आपने स्ट्रेट
clear
फॉरवर्ड
answer.
सिंपल
It's a
क्वेश्चन।
very simple answer on that, because when the bank lends you, they clearly state that it's not you're not going to live in there. You have to make sure that you take a property to buy and live in there as well. So a bank will first of all, that's the question. Reason being that जो buy to let property होती है उसमें sometimes you have to take breaks, and उसका reason ये होता है कि sometimes your property is not let out और उसमें लोग मौजूद नहीं होते जो रेंट पे करें, तो उसमें एक फैसिलिटी प्रोवाइड की जाती है टू द बोरोअर दैट दे कैन टेक लाइक 2-3 मंथ्स का ब्रेक बीच में, मीनवाइल दैट्स हैपनिंग एंड
अच्छा, लेकिन आप मुझे ये बताएं कि चलो ये तो बात समझ आ गई कि बाय टू लेट एक्चुअली मींस बाय टू लेट।
एग्जैक्टली, एंड
ठीक
द
है,
बैंक
लेकिन
विल
अगर
डेफिनेटली
फॉर
इंश्योर।
इंस्टेंस अगर आयशा जिस तरह लंदन से बोल रही हैं, वो कह रही हैं कि जी मैंने लंदन प्रॉपर्टी खरीद ली बाय टू लेट के ऊपर, और 6 महीने बाद उनके खुद हालात चेंज हो जाते हैं, एंड देन शी हैज़ टू लिव इन दैट हाउस, व्हाट्स द बैंक्स पोजीशन देन?
You have to speak to the bank. Bank may convert that back to buy to live, because that is totally bank's की choice है कि whether they will let you live in there or not. Because if it will continue saying buy to let house, and the bank is aware it's buy to let house, by the rules and regulation, by the contract, you can't live in there. And if you wish to live in there because you've bought the property anyways, you have to ensure that you inform the bank and you let them know that now the situation, my circumstances have changed, and I would like to convert the property rather to buy to let to buy to live.
Right, okay.
So there are choices to make, but you have to, as I said in the very beginning, हमेशा जिस लेंडर से आपने बोरो किए हैं, you have to make sure you make them informed decision. You can go in there must be choices. So ये होता है कि there needs to be a contract change rather than it has to be a buy to let, it has to be a buy to live contract. Then she can go ahead and legally live in that house.
ठीक है आयशा, पहला आपका सवाल तो आंसर हो गया, उम्मीद है आपको सेटिस्फैक्टरी आंसर हुआ है। आर यू स्टिल ऑनलाइन? ओके, अच्छा, अब दूसरा सवाल जो था इनका वो ये था कि शी वांट्स टू बाय अ प्रॉपर्टी बट शी वांट्स टू बाय इट विद अ फ्रेंड, तो व्हाट इज द सिचुएशन देन?
That is possible. Are they planning to live together in the house, or
No, no, buy to
is
let.
it buy to let? Yes, that's possible, absolutely possible.
And ये मेरा ख्याल है tenancy agreement is called there is a tenancy agreement, isn't there? It's
exactly.
called what is it called? Joint tenancy agreement, something.
That won't be tenancy agreement
No,
because
no,
she,
but
if she's
amongst
buying,
themselves.
it can't be tenancy agreement. Tenancy agreement takes place between the owner and the tenant. So that's called tenancy agreement. So the person who's going to rent the property, that's where the tenancy agreement comes. So if two people are buying it together, they're actually jointly borrowing money. So उसमें उनकी income और outgoing दोनों लोगों की count होगी, and yes, that is possible if they want to go ahead and jointly buy a property.
No, I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
There is actually, I think it's called joint common tenancy, something of that kind. There is actually a legal word for it. लेकिन वो उसको मैं इंशाल्लाह ताला बाद में I'll
Because
look it up later
I'm
on.
not sure what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
I'm clarifying,
But,
generally tenancy agreements are
जी, जी, जी,
between
जी,
the
जी, जी, जी.
owners and the tenant.
जी.
So that's what I'm aware of. If you have something else in mind, then I
No, no,
need
no,
to
no,
know
no.
it more in
मैं बल्कि
details.
next time मैं नाज़रीन को बता भी दूंगा कि exactly what it was. अच्छा, तो you can then definitely
Definitely.
have a property
Yeah.
with a friend.
Right,
ठीक है?
and both are
They both
inputting,
need
they're
to be.
depositing.
अच्छा, ये जो buy to let properties खरीदते हैं तो obviously बात है कि you basically look at the income of what the rent is going to be.
Rent is going to be rent, कितना rent उसमें से आएगा.
तो
Secondly जो है आपका
deposit
deposit क्या pay कर रहा है जो borrow कर रहा है. And secondly
Deposit
borrower
usually-
की भी financial condition देखी जाती है इसमें. It's just not that the borrower is gonna just go away with having the income thing. Yes, it's more secure क्योंकि पता है कि उसमें से एक income generate भी होगी. And secondly they will see what is the borrower's condition, कि उनकी क्या condition है, कि in case आपकी property for a long time tenancy पे नहीं जाती है और आपको अपना service नहीं मिलता, तो how would you service the mortgage? Because your property is sitting idle at the moment, there's no tenant in there, so somebody has to pay the mortgage. So that's where it comes from. Generally लोग जो हैं क्या नाम है, ये जो property agents होते हैं, इनसे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कर लेते हैं, विच मेक्स लाइफ ईजियर. बिकॉज कोई भी टेनेंट निकलने लगता है उससे एक मंथ पहले दे स्टार्ट गेटिंग टेनेंट्स फॉर यू, सो दैट मेक्स माई लाइफ ईजियर. बट समटाइम्स पीपल हु आर प्राइवेटली रेंटिंग द हाउसेज टू द टेनेंट्स, ये मुश्किल हो जाता है वो कहाँ से टेनेंट ढूंढ के लाएं. तो इट कुड बी द सिनेरियो वेयर द प्रॉपर्टी इज वेकेंट फॉर 5 to 6 months. So ये बहुत important चीज़ है that they have to show their income and outgoing, where bank is satisfied that in case of that situation the borrower is able to pay the mortgage on time.
Right, okay. So basically the bank is going to have their own safety
Exactly. They will make sure that they are safe on the other side in case you don't have tenant in the property.
ठीक है, thank you very much. That was, I hope कि आयशा आपको ये आपके सवाल का जवाब मिल गया. Thank you so much. अगर आपको if you need anything else further, तो आप please leave your telephone number behind, and I'm sure कि Sadia will give you a call and explain to you in more detail. Thank you so much for your call. नाज़रीन, मैं तो बल्कि ये भी कहूँगा कि फिर से आपको देख रहे होंगे नीचे टेलीफोन नंबर भी हमारा चल रहा है 0208 662 4550. आप लोग कॉल इन भी कर सकते हैं अपनी कोई इंक्वायरी हो in regards to banking, in regards to loans, in regards to mortgages and so on and so forth. या आप लोग अपनी इंक्वायरी यहाँ पर भी भेज सकते हैं info@ikra.tv. उसके ऊपर भी आप भेज सकते हैं and we'll certainly get back to you in regards to that as well. अच्छा, क्रेडिट रिपोर्ट तो हमने हैंडल कर ली and we understand कि this is possibly one of the most important things. ये आपका एक starting है और जिस तरह आपने explain किया कि it's not just about managing your loans and so on and so forth. It's actually the whole thing is about how you act as
how reliable you are,
how reliable you are and how creditworthy you are.
Creditworthy you are.
अच्छा, इसके बाद हम लोग बात करेंगे लोन्स की, ठीक है, स्मॉल बिजनेसेस की. तो लेकिन उससे पहले हम लोग जाएंगे एक ब्रेक के ऊपर. नाज़रीन, एक छोटी सी ब्रेक के ऊपर हम लोग चलते हैं. उस ब्रेक के बाद मैं और सादिया आपका इंतज़ार करेंगे. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका.